Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I get the awesome opportunity to speak with Alyssa Ellis. She is the executive director at Springdale Nazarene up in Ohio. And I've really been looking forward to talking with you and just hearing your story. So thanks for being here with us.
Well, I'm quite honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So if you wouldn't mind, we will just get started. We'd love to hear about your testimony and your upbringing. What got you to where you are today?
Okay. All right. Well, let's see. Let's go all the way back to the beginning then. And when I was a child, I was raised in the Lutheran denomination. My family went to church most Sundays, and we participated in the life of the church. But if I'm being completely honest, we were also a sports family, and so a lot of times sports trumped Sundays. And I also have to confess that I didn't pay a ton of attention through confirmation classes and those sorts of things. That's just me being honest right out of the gate. But why I share that though is most definitely the seed had been planted. So all of those years, just the repetition and being exposed to church, seeds were definitely planted. So that was my upbringing. If you fast forward to now, I'm a young adult. I have a family of my own, and I was really seeking out a church where I could be viewed as a quote grown up. I didn't want to be viewed as little Alyssa anymore. I wanted to be viewed as a mom. And so I found Springdale Nazarene. And I would say mostly I joined there because of the kids ministry. That was the strongest pull. Great preaching, and I had a really awesome Sunday school class that I got connected into, my family got connected into. So that's kind of how we found Springdale. Raised my family here at Springdale. I was very involved in our Sunday school class. It was through that season of my journey where I can say that I was saved. That was on a retreat. And then I was being raised Lutheran. I was baptized as a baby. And so then as an adult, on a different retreat, I chose for my own choice then to be rebaptized or baptized again. So
Great.
that happened again as an adult. Let's see. So while I was raising my family, I was working full time for a regional bank and doing the quote climbing of the corporate ladder, so to speak. I was, taking care of my family financially and working for the bank. So then I'll take you to probably early 2020. I was nominated to run for our board here at the church. And excuse me, what you have to know about that is I had been nominated the year prior and I didn't make it. And now here I am in the next year being nominated again. And I kind of called a little timeout and was like, hold on, I don't want to just keep being nominated for this and like never making it on the board. Like I'm not really okay with that.
Yeah.
So I called my pastor. I wanted to talk to him more seriously about it. And my husband and I, had a phone call with him. And it was during that phone call that the conversation pivoted from talking about a board position to talking more about a staff position. And like, would I be interested in talking more about it? And I can remember looking at my husband and kind of going like, whispering to him, like putting the phone on mute and going am I interested in this? I don't know. Like, this is a huge plot twist. Did not see that coming in that conversation.
Yeah.
I was like, I thought we were talking about a board position. So that's where the conversation to join into a staff position started. And then it took probably, probably 4 or 5 months later, a lot of prayer, a lot of conversation, several affirmations along the way. A lot of number crunching. I want to pause here and say, being the financial provider for my family and that financial security was very important to me. And part of my story is climbing out of 6-figure debt, not only once, but twice.
Wow.
And so it was through this process in these conversations that I really had to let go of that financial control and security and just to like relinquish that to the Lord and say, okay, Lord, if this is what you want for me, it's a huge change in salary and resources for my family. And so I really had to let go of that. And so that was one of those affirming moments along the way. And so at the end of all this, here we are 4 or 5 months later, I left the bank and I joined Springdale Nazarene as the executive director.
We'll be right back with the rest of this episode. But did you know you can receive credit for listening to Holiness Today podcasts? Holiness Today podcasts qualify for lifelong learning with the Church of the Nazarene. To register for lifelong learning, simply go to learning.nazarene.org. The Lifelong Learning Registry provides Nazarene ministers the opportunity to record and report their efforts to develop and maintain a pattern of lifelong learning. Every Nazarene minister is encouraged to engage in a variety of lifelong learning activities. The code for Holiness Today podcast will be listed in the show description. This code can be utilized for this episode and any previous episode you wish to listen to. Thank you for being a listener and sharing in the ministry of the Church of the Nazarene. Now back to the rest of your episode.
What's crazy about this, if you caught that, I said that it was in the year of 2020, and there was a little thing going on in the world in the year 2020.
Yes, a little thing.
I remember thinking, like, who leaves, like, who does this year? Like, not only did I leave it wasn't like I moved from one department to another or one bank to another bank. Like, I did complete life change right in the middle of all of this, like, pandemic craziness. So only the Lord could have orchestrated that for sure. And
Absolutely.
the other thing that was really crazy about that and the timing, I say crazy, but it's really a God thing, is I was feeling really unsettled in my role at the bank, probably the last 5 years that I was there. But I wasn't unsettled enough to really proactively look at change or look to doing something different. All the while, in probably that last 5 years and all that unsettling feeling, those years were hands down preparing me for the ministry role that I was about to take. And so, of course, I can now look back and go, oh, I'm still getting those affirmations along the way that, okay, God, I see you.
Yeah.
I see what you were up to. I get it now. I didn't realize it at the time, but I kind of get that now. So so that's my short testimony and kind of background story. Probably next question you'll ask me is, okay, so what's it like being an executive director? Kind of what are you up to these days?
Yes, exactly.
Yep. So I would say, so I've been here coming up on 5 years, and I have served as the executive director in all 5 of those years and serving under the same pastor. And what I've learned in the 5 years is that the role of an executive director, I like to say it's kind of like being a chameleon, that you ebb and flow and adapt to whatever the need is at the moment. My first year that I worked here, I did crisis management. It was all things pandemic and communications. And are we going to be open? Are we going to be closed? Are we masked? Are we not? Are we, so I would say these roles can be very different in different seasons. And then there's no 2 executive director roles that are alike. So when I network and I meet with other people that are in similar roles, I've noticed their responsibilities can be very different than what my responsibilities are. And that can be kind of unique in the sense that I get to kind of carve out the role as my gifting allows and as what complements then my senior pastor. So when I tell people about my role, I say, there's really 3 areas of responsibility that I have. First one being I take work off the pastor's plate. So when he knocks on my door and says, hey, I've got an idea, love those starts to conversation. Or, it'll start with like, I wish I had more time to do X, certainly supporting the lead pastor. We have an ongoing joke that I will do anything and everything that he asks me to do. I'll tell him I'll clean toilets if that's what the church needs. But there's really 2 things that I won't do, and that is I won't preach and I won't lead worship. And that's because you don't want me in either one of those roles.
I
so we
love
kind of
it.
have a joke of like, are you putting me on the preaching calendar? No. Okay, then I can do it.
Yeah.
So that's one. And then second area of responsibility would be overseeing the business side of the church. We're in the Nazarene denomination, we're a fairly large church. We've got 7 campuses or church families. And so that takes a lot of kind of behind the scenes manpower to run the operations. And so everything from finances, operations, board meetings, all that kind of stuff. So do that. And then we've got probably about 20 to 25 staff in various roles and capacities that are on the team. And so keeping them all humming and marching in the same direction and keeping them inspired and developing and coaching and all that kind of stuff. So that would be the third area is help the senior pastor, oversee the operations with the staff. So
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. It's a lot of variety. I love it. No 2 days are alike. And I really get to see, kind of back to my story of coming off that 20-year career in corporate. I can see where my experiences that were used there, now I get to use it for ministry, which is just so much cooler. So.
Yeah, well, that is a perfect segue for my next question.
Oh, yeah?
Because
Okay.
I was going to ask how God has used your life story or your background for your ministry today. So could you give us like an example of one of those?
Sure. Let's see. So, things that I haven't shared thus far, we're all, we all have life experiences and different stories. And my story also includes seasons of rebellion and brokenness. And I think because of those experiences, and really without realizing it, I had created this false narrative in my head that I wasn't good enough for ministry. I wasn't churchy enough. I wasn't like all those other people, right, that put on that front and come to church. And honestly, it never really crossed my mind that I would ever work in ministry. Like I did not see that as my destiny or my calling. But I would then also flip and say that my story allows me to encourage others who maybe feel that tug towards ministry, but know that it's not to preach.
Yeah. I am a full believer and there are many roles within ministry. Yes, preaching is one of them, but that's not for everyone.
Yes.
So
Yeah. For obvious
it's not
reasons,
for me either.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, it's kind of when you say, oh, I'm feeling, a call towards ministry, that's what comes to mind, for some very first off. But so I guess when I'm meeting people or I'm, networking with a mentor, mentee relationship or somebody that's kind of newer in their role, I just really want them to know that God has used my business gifts, quote, business gifts, and talents for his glory, right? We can't all be called to be pastors and worship leaders.
Absolutely.
And we aren't even all called to work in a church, right? Like somebody's mission field could be their work, their school, their neighborhood, their, community. But building the kingdom takes all sorts of talents.
Absolutely.
And he just asks for us to say, yes, Lord, use me. And that's where I had to get even within my own story of, okay, how does the Lord think he's going to use my corporate gifts for building up his kingdom? And so I want that to encourage whoever's listening today to know that he's placed those gifts, those unique gifts and abilities in you for a reason, and to lean into what that reason is.
I love that. And I will chime in with you. I have worked at the Global Ministry Center off and on for 10 years now. And I am not a preacher. My dad is, and I love that, but I will not be.
Right.
But my gifts, I have used working in the Global Ministry Center, both with like Holiness Today, and I used to work in the General Secretary's office doing event planning for things like General Assembly. So yeah, I think gifts and talents are specific to people, but God can use all people in his ministry. So thank you for sharing that, because I completely agree.
And sometimes it might take you 20 years of your professional career to figure it out, like me. Like who knows? Or maybe you'll find it out sooner. That'd be great.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. That's so true. Okay, so I'm going to ask if there's anyone who has influenced or impacted your ministry along the way that you would like to share with us about.
Yeah, so two wonderful men come to mind, and one of those is my lead pastor, not to sound like I'm kissing up.
It's okay.
But when I think about that question, I can sit here and say that I have grown more professionally and personally under his leadership in the past 5 years than I probably did in the 20 years prior. Now, don't get me wrong, it hasn't been without trial and error.
Of course. Of course.
we've had our moments. We probably don't have enough time for me to share all those stories. So, ask me another time about the time I tried to resign when he was in the mountains without cell service because I just was like, I can't do this anymore. And he's like, what in the heck's going on?
I will ask you about that sometime. I'm curious.
Yes. Yeah. So it's taken a lot of trial and error. It's taken a lot of work. It's taken a lot of effort. But I would say I don't only consider him to be my boss and my pastor, but he's an awesome friend and an awesome mentor. So
that's great.
So he would be one. And then most definitely my husband would be the second. I don't know which one goes number one, number two. They're both equally have influenced or impacted my life in different ways. My husband has supported me through crazy seasons of life and ideas. I've come home and told him we need to sell our house and move. I've come home and said, hey, we need to buy an RV. Side note, we've never bought an RV. I've come home and said, hey, I've got a new business idea. I want to start a new business. And he has been like my steady through all of the ups and downs and crazies of life. He's been my rock. What's really, really been cool the past 5 years, it's just being a spouse of a staff person is different as well. So when we said yes to this opportunity for me, he was also saying yes. And, this is now going to get me emotional. I have watched him grow in his own faith journey especially over these past 5 years. And it's been such a beautiful thing to watch.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, just journeying through it together. It's been great. We're both fiercely independent. Another little fun fact about us is that we lived in different states the first year of our marriage.
Wow.
So we didn't even live together after we got married. And so, like I said, we're fiercely independent, but at the end of the day, end of the week, end of the trip, end of the whatever, fill in the blank, I have no doubt that he's going to be there and is going to be cheering me on. And he is my number one fan. Just the other day, I've got notes sitting here in my office that like he left me just, on a Sunday when I wasn't in my office, just encouraging me. And that means a lot.
That's wonderful. So, I love that. Yeah. That's great.
Two great people.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's so important to have, your spouse or your family members or those closest to you, like what a drastic difference it is when they're supporting you and, you just have, that they've got you. I love it.
And there's things that of course have gone on in our ministry now that like we didn't know were going to be a part of what we were signing up for. He gets drugged to more events and more graduation parties and more things than he probably realized. And, each time we've kind of gotten it figured out now, it's like, okay, I have to share very openly with him of like, I need you to come to this, or I'd like for you to come with me, or like, hey, I'm totally cool doing this by myself. Like, you're good.
Yeah.
But it's, and he has a full-time job himself. So when I think about that, like the church is where I show up every day, but he shows up somewhere else and then comes to church too for different reasons and, events and things. So, he's definitely my supporter in so many ways.
Yeah. Wonderful. That's so good. All right, moving on. What is one area in your life that you feel God has developed specifically throughout your ministry?
Please don't laugh when I say this, but this one is so easy for me to think of. Hands down, it's building relationships. And I say that because here comes the laughter part, because people are exhausting. And
that they are.
They're just so okay, so if you've spent any time with me, you'll quickly see that I am wired for things like project management and event planning and tasks and details. And I'm a very like check things off the list kind of person. My husband jokes that I will be spontaneous on Tuesdays at 4, like it's very, very logical, very scheduled. And I can still remember back to when I was leaving my corporate career. One of my mentors at the time was coaching me on the importance of building relationships. And so I remember him sharing this example. He said, you're going to go out to lunch and talk with people, And that's going to feel really unproductive to you because it's not checking something off a list, advancing a project.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that I fully appreciated his wisdom at the time because we're in the people business, right? I mean, church
Absolutely.
ministry is about people. And I'm introverted by nature. I refuel by stepping away. And having quieter time. And so when you don't necessarily refuel or get energized by being around other people, that's kind of where my people are exhausting comment comes in. With this role, some days it's a revolving door of therapy sessions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that in quote,
Yeah.
or, some days it's managing expectations of lay people. Some days it's navigating really difficult conversations. And, at the end of the day, that can be very mentally fatiguing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like the Lord has literally carried me through some of those conversations and days where I just didn't think I had it in me to people anymore. And so I would say, I have definitely, and I think if you ask anyone working around me, they would say that's probably been one of my biggest areas of growth in this role is building relationships. So
Yeah.
Now I want to say all this with this, like, people are amazing. Like, please don't mishear me that I don't like people.
I was just about to say, I can promise you are not the only person on staff at a church who think people are exhausting. We love people. People are great. We are people. We are exhausting. We know.
Yes.
So,
And for
yes.
just as many stories of exhaustion I have just as many stories to show examples of where I have felt so loved and cared for and appreciated. Our staff is amazing. Our church family is incredible. Just the Lord has continued to bless us and bless our ministry over and over again. So, people can also be amazing.
They can't be. Yes, but you're right. It can go both ways. And that's just like what we like to talk about on this podcast, kind of just like real life stuff in ministry.
That is real life. There's days I go home where I'm just like, I can't talk to anyone else. I'm done peopling for the day.
Yep, absolutely. I get it.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So after this, what encouragement would you give to your fellow staff, or maybe not even on your staff, but just fellow staff in the Nazarene world?
Let's see. I would say do it scared. And the reason I say that is, God's leading you to it. He's going to lead you through it. Through the interview process for this role, I can remember telling my husband, like, I'm not qualified to lead pastors. Like, why me? Like, what? Like, I don't have that gifting. I can remember asking him things like, the people in my church know my story. Like, are they going to embrace me in this role? And so I had to do it scared, and I'm still doing it scared.
But you're doing it.
Yeah, but I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And that's where we grow the most, is when we get uncomfortable and we're obedient to what the Lord has placed at our feet and put in front of us. There's some days I go home with a whole lot of fear and doubt and what in the world am I doing thoughts. And then some days I go home quoting Esther, knowing that I have been placed in this role for such a time as this. So yeah, do it scared. I have a fun story too. It's like a little fun fact about me.
Good. Tell us.
Goes along with this theme. So in the spirit of doing it scared, let's see, it was probably within the first 6 months of 6 months of being in my new role. I can remember sitting in my pastor's office, and we were doing like some Sunday service planning, and we were trying to figure out who was going to give the like top of the service announcements or vision casting time, as some people, some might call it. And without even realizing what I was doing, I like raised my hand and I'm like, well, I can do it. Like, would that be okay? I don't mind doing the announcements. Like, it can't be that hard. And so of course I got signed up for it, and it was it was then I don't remember if it was like the immediate next Sunday or a few Sundays out or when exactly it all transpired. But that is when I learned that I have this uncontrollable shaky right hand when it comes to when I get nervous. And so I cannot hold the microphone on the platform in my right hand because you'll see it like visibly shaking.
Oh no.
And that very first time, of course, I didn't know it because it was my first time. And I got down off the platform and I went back and I sat with my family and they like could not contain themselves with laughter. And they were just like, Mom, your hand was so shaky. Like, what happened to you up there? And I'm like, I don't know. And I thought, okay, well, that was just newness nerves. But here I am 5 years later, and every time I have to get on the platform and participate in the service with a microphone in my hand, it just
happens.
So I have to hold the microphone in my left hand, which means I can't hold any props. Sometimes when you're up there, you're trying to like, hold the Spirit Wear t-shirt or, some kind of visual aid. Like that's a train wreck. I can't do that. But yeah, so I don't even know how I got onto that story or that little fun anecdote about me, but that would definitely be a day where I'm like, was like, what am I doing? Why did I sign up for this?
You did it scared. You did. That's awesome.
It doesn't get me out of doing it. I still have to participate, but yeah. So
isn't that so funny? Like I can share a little kind of example for me too with that. I have been on the worship team off and on throughout the years, and I can get up there and sing and it's no problem. But if I have to get up and talk, even if it's just like a few sentences, I don't know what the difference is, but I am not a public speaker. I will sing on the worship team, but don't ask me to get up and talk because I just kind of freeze a little bit and I stumble on my words. I don't know why. It's just like looking out there and it's different, but it is.
Well, my guess would be because one is worship and it's so much easier to worship.
You're probably right. Yeah. I can block them all out while I'm worshiping the Lord,
Right. But yeah, public speaking, it's fun.
Yeah, it sure is. As we sit here on a podcast.
Right. I hope I don't say anything stupid today.
I know. We're doing it scared over here. I love it. All right. Well, with that, I will ask you one final question if you don't mind. And this is just kind of a personal question. I like to ask them this sometimes, but what is one of your favorite Bible verses or passages and why?
Yep. So I have a plaque on my nightstand and it's Jeremiah 29:11, which is pretty popular. Most people, or well, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of people know that one. And that is, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans not to prosper you, not to harm you, but plans to give you hope in the future. And that verse came to me in one of my seasons of brokenness, and it kind of carried me through that season. And it has just kind of evolved into what I would consider to be my life verse, that the Lord's got me. He's going to get me through this, and he's got a plan for my future, and I just need to trust in it. And it's going to work out for the way he wants it to. So, yeah.
I love that one. It is popular, but it's such a good one. There's a reason it's popular.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us, for sharing your story, being vulnerable, sharing some encouragement. This has been awesome. I've taken a lot from it, and I'm sure our listeners will too. So thank you so much.
Good. Yeah, it was a great time to be here, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Holiness Today podcast. If you enjoyed this production and wish to hear more, visit holinesstoday.org/podcast or find us on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts.